We're here. Hello, people. If you're watching this on Twitch, we are entering the second part of an interview that I have done with the amazing artist Tim Hall, who, if you're, young and lonely and sad and feeling depressed and so on, you know what? You don't have to be a great artist. You would find drawing, painting can be very therapeutic. That's what Tim has found. But he has also found that exploring his faith brought a great comfort to him. So you can, I'll put in the notes when I go back afterwards where you can find the first part of this interview, because it is on my regular YouTube and Trish TV. But for now, we're going to continue this interview and we're going to get deeper into the spiritual side of things. So bless you so much, Tim. You've just, it's been great. So this next part of your walk, you had, just to recap, you've had family crash, you've had, you walked away from your ministry when those things happened, and you found yourself.
I was on my own, and now I had two of the kids. My former wife, the little one was only 2, so I couldn't look after her. So the other 2 stayed with me, and so I was trying to. So basically, I was painting paintings. And so I did 5, right? I didn't have any income. So I did 5 or 6 paintings. And I took them. God had spoken to me and said, "What have you got in your hand?" And I said, "Okay, at the moment, I'm out of work. I can't preach for a while. I want to get my family together. No income and very little money in the bank." So I painted a bunch of paintings with my dad's stuff. Did about 5 or 6. Took them down to the picture framer, who was a friend of mine. I'd done a lot of work with him before because I'd been very close with Pro Hart, and Pro had been a great supporter to the ministry. So I went down to see him, and he looked at the paintings. He said, "Man, who did these?" I said, "Yeah, I did those." He said, "Can I buy that bigger one?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "How much?" I said, $150. This is back in '88. And I'd never sold a painting to this point. Never sold a painting in my life to this point. I'd been through the School of Art. I'd done really well. Oh, that's not true. I did have an exhibition as a school teacher and did pretty well for a kindergarten. I did. So I'd had 1 exhibition. And so had I had 2? No, I might be wrong. I might have had a couple of exhibitions. Yes, I had. So anyway, he looked at me and said, "Can I buy that?" I said, "Sure." "How much?" $150. And some ladies from the church came in and they said, "Pastor Tim, can we, who did these?" I said, "I did." They said, "Can we buy them?" I said, "Sure." They said, "How much?" They're only this long, this little paintings. I said, $50. They bought 4, so that's 5. And so I've got 4 at 50. That's a couple of $100, $350 I've made now. And an art dealer came and he said, "Man, whose work's this?" And I said, "Oh, that's mine." He said, "You're professional?" I said, yeah, I'm a professional artist." And he said, "I'd like to buy 20 of these small ones." "How much?" I said, "Well, I can do 20 a week for you." He said, "I want to buy 20 a week and I'll give you 1,000 cash a week." I said, "Okay." It's 1988. So it was good money. And I did pay tax on it. But so he started buying paintings, and he was selling them door to door for $200. I was painting them for $50. And then people started to ask me and say, "Can I buy one off the wall?" So now they're going off the walls. And I don't know how many we sold, because I know since 1988, I've sold all up 3,400 and something paintings. We've produced 20 something prints. We've got stuff in all sorts of houses, but it just opened up. And
would you like to show us some of those paintings now? Shall we have a look at what we've got? And also we've got Stephanie Ross, who's just made a comment. She said, "Hi Trish, hey Trish, I'm glad you're enjoying the interview." And I believe you've met Pastor Tim. So, and Stephanie and her husband Cameron. Cameron's my brother, and they're on Bribie Island. So
nice spot.
And I believe my mum said she'd tune in, so she'll be there somewhere watching. Ian and Jen Ross, and so
I know them years ago.
Yeah, well, Stephanie is my beautiful sister-in-law. So
hello,
welcome.
Stephanie. God bless you.
So let's have a look now. The next one along in our list
Well, that's Pro. See, Pro Hart and I are very close friends.
Yeah.
And we worked closely together, did a lot of stuff together, actually, Pro and I. He financed so many of the major crusades we've done around the world. He and Rayleigh, just beautiful people. But he and I clicked, and I would spend so much time up there with him, painting with him, laughing and joking, cartooning his whole studio. I'd get a Technicolor and cartoon everything from the brand new fridge that came in the door to a lot of fun. He was one of the most genuine people I ever met in my life. One of the people that I've ever met that I miss him like my own dad, and I miss my dad incredibly. But he was a great friend, and he painted his little Bibles and gave away thousands of Bibles. He was the most generous guy, and the number of souls that we were able to win to Christ through his support over the years has been incredible.
Wow.
And he inspired me. We used to paint together, and we'd sit out there under his shed and paint and laugh. And
so good.
Yeah, it's some of the richest moments of my life were just spent with this man. Yeah.
Oh, so lovely. Shall I? Let's see. We've got a series of them to have a look at now. Just to give you a quick idea, we've got the sporting.
Well, they
ones.
were by Pro. These are my watercolors, the early ones. The second row down on the right. That was Pro. Pro produced them. We made a lot of money with those prints of the Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
And that one I got on television, and they promoted it, and it was signed by Bradman and signed by Pro Hart. It was a miracle how that opened up. And
wow.
We got on television with free advertising, and the phone started to ring from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 at night, and every call was $400, and we made enough money there to do some major crusades and invest big money into Bradman's favourite. And I spent a lot of time with him while he signed them. This one was signed by the Chappell brothers, and this one didn't quite have the impact as the other one, but the other one made a lot of money. All of that went into ministry, and so we were raising money and doing crusades, and art's been such a significant part. This is a painting I did of Bradman.
Yeah. Tell us about this one.
Well, I had the opportunity to go and see Sir Donald because we did the right thing with those other prints and put money into the crippled children. He said, and I said, would you consider if I did a painting of your cover drive? And he said, yeah, sure. And he signed it on the leg. You can sort of see the signature across from the pad. It's about the biggest Don Bradman signature ever. And it finished up. The print of that has gone everywhere. Nelson Mandela, the prints were sold and they went out to all sorts of charities, and we made a lot of money with that. And it finished up in some interesting hands. I think Shane Warne's got one. I think I know Steve War's got one. I think John Howard. That went into some amazing places. And the one that I really enjoyed was that a copy of the print went into the hands of Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
And it opened a lot of doors. It hung in the Bradman collection in Adelaide with his pads and bats, and was photographed with many of the great players. The one next, that was being presented to Nelson Mandela, the print of it. And so, that was, and we sold the original for over 50,000 at a time when I just had to have a break from ministry for a while. I'd just been going so flat out. I said, God, I'm going to take a few months. And I felt him say, just take time and seek me again. Just wait on me, because I always mix it up. And when I start to feel like I've been going too hard for too long, I'll stop and just get in the mountains, get up into the Flinders Ranges, get up in the bush and just seek God, and then get back into it again. Because I think sometimes we can just become professional, and we can only bring to people what we've touched.
Okay.
We can't bring anything we haven't touched.
That's gold. I want to pause there and reinforce that point, because when things get too hard, get too hectic, you've got to recognize when they're getting too much and pull back.
That's it.
And that's what you were able to do. You've got to be able, the world will keep turning. If you, even if you take a break, the world is going to keep turning. It won't fall apart. And you're no use to anyone if you can't pull back. And then the pressing into God is where you tap into his strength and his Holy Spirit, and you need that refreshing, because the ministry, if you're in ministry, it is not dependent on you. God doesn't need your help. He doesn't rely on you. he needs to refresh you. You need to be relying on him and refreshing him, right? Yeah, so important. This burnout thing among ministry is about not having good boundaries and not, letting yourself get loved and refreshed.
My biggest frustration with this lockdown was the inability to even get out. I go out to a prayer spot every day, most days, out to a place called Mount Macedon for a few hours, 2 or 3 hours a day. And when they locked us down, I was none too thrilled. So I'd go to a football ground every day for hours and seek God. Yeah, there's no shortcut. There is no shortcut, and so yeah. But I love the outback, and I love painting the outback, and a number of those pictures there.
Let's have a look at those pictures. Let's have a look at your watercolors. Here they are. They start here. I'm just going to make them a bit bigger each time. How fun is that? What else we got? The old Holden.
I can't see them from here.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hang on. I forgot to, my fault. Whoops, wrong one. I'll just, okay, that's why you were nice and quiet while I was showing them. Here we go. Well, here we are. There we are.
This is an incredible story. I was needing a bit of cash at one stage. I thought we need to get some money, and I had done these prints prints of old Holden cars, and I was saying, Lord, we need to just get these out. The prints were selling, and anyway, there was an image of the prints that was on a thing that was for sale, and a guy was looking, and one of these pieces of paper flew up, and he grabbed it in the air, and he looked at it. He thought, I love those. Made contact with the printer who printed the prints, and said, can I meet that guy? Contacted me, and he said, would you be open for these prints to go on tins at Target? And he said it'd be one of 4 collections: Pro Hart, Darcy Doyle, Kevin Best, and myself on biscuit tins. And so these things sold like hotcakes. They're on tins, and if you have a look around home, you might even have, some people might have some of these.
Awesome.
I've still got a few of them. I've still got the biscuits in them, so they're pretty old. They're back in 90 something, but I love doing these things. That's part of an old town. I spend a lot of time in the outback. When I go out and pray, I get right up to Rowie and White Yarkowie and right out there. And I love the Flinders Ranges. That's my favourite place to go. And I just love the earthiness of Australia. There's something about, and I love this stuff. This old house, that old house, that's also in Tarawi. This car, who knows where it is, but I'll take the car and I'll take the old house. I have drawn that house dozens of times from every angle, and I just like signage. And so I thought I'll put a couple of signs on the side of the house, like it's a, and then the for sale and the old Holden cars. I love the old Holdens, but I love light. I love to capture the flash of light across there, and because God's light. And every now and again, I'll be looking at a sunset, and I say to the Lord, I say, you're a very good painter, aren't you?
Looks like that.
And he says, John Bevere, that's in John's house. John Bevere loves that. Went over to America.
Wow.
But I look at sunsets and I say, Lord, you're very good. He says, yeah, I paint with water. I'm a watercolorist, because the sunset is light through the water droplets. And he says, I'll show you how to paint a sunset. And when I'm painting the sunsets in watercolor, I'll put it very wet, and then I'll just run the colors in together. And I know what colors I've got a range that I flow in through that sky, and just to produce those colors, there's a rose madder and Indian yellow and a Prussian blue or whatever, and I just let them lots of water and run them, and then you just lift up your board and let it run, and you run those clouds, and it just produces the most extraordinary things. And God's pretty impressed with hese watercolors. He knows he paints well. This old town here, I love this stuff, the galvanized iron, and then shadows are so beautiful. And I'll often do the same painting from different perspective, different angle, and vary it. And I love atmospheric perspective, creating that distance down the road, and
just gorgeous.
The old buildings. There's something for me that I really just enjoy. I find God out there in those old towns, alone with God. I'll be praying in the Holy Spirit, praying in the Spirit and driving around. And I love this sort of stuff. That's an old shed over in South Australia at a place called Old Talem Town. And I'm good friends with the guy that built that town from scratch, a guy called Peter Squires. And I just sort of worked with that, and I put all these things in, and I love the graffiti stuff. And I think there were some other signs. I put different signs in there and just create that, almost a memory of when you're a kid, of going into those old sheds. My uncle's shed that had a million redback spiders.
Reminds me of that Pickers show. You know those guys who on the Lifestyle Channel, where they're pickers and they go through these towns into people's barns, and they buy these signs, and they're actually valuable now.
American Pickers is one of my favourite programs. One of the few things. Now this is 10 feet long, and it was a commission for a friend of mine. It's going to be hanging in the house that is considered the #1 house in South Australia. It's a property worth $4.5 million, $5 million. A magnificent home. A friend of mine owns it.
Well, we won't identify it because we don't want anybody knocking anything off.
No, we won't. But so this one will be hanging there as well. Just
gorgeous. We talked about this one, didn't we? Shall we see what else we've got here? So, because when we change the types of pictures, it'll change the mood.
This is typical landscape, acrylic landscape. This one here is a. I just love colour. I love the Australian colour.
This is a particular interest to our. I have a lot of American friends on Facebook and in my social media. So this is our landscape. It's just gorgeous. There's a lot of variety, but this is very typically Australian. Just
our country, particularly, I get up to the Flinders Ranges, and I've been up there so many times that I'll drive 50 kilometres away from there, and I'll be just driving in, and this might sound super spiritual, I don't know, but I feel the Lord get in that car with me, and I drive up around to Beltana and right up to Lee Creek and out through those old towns and old ghost towns out there. And the whole time I'm just lost in God. And I never want to leave it when I'm up there. You know, I was up there once, I didn't want to come home. And I was saying to Jack, look, I might have to just stay another week up here. And she's pretty good with that. And then it rained like mad. And when it rained so heavily, I thought, it looks like I'm going to get washed out. I was out there praying one day. I was out for prayer somewhere. And this painting's interesting. I don't know if we can blow it up a little bit bigger.
I can. Let's bring that up.
Well, that's all painted. They're all stones on there. They're all rocks. And I was just talking to the Lord, and he said, pick up a bunch of these stones. They were small red stones. I've still got a lot of them in my cupboard at work. And I've got a few bags of stones, different shapes and sizes. And he said, go and paint with them. And I didn't know anything about it. And this is where God wants to give people creative ideas. And so I went back and I used a certain medium and mixed the rocks and sand and started to build the canvas. And so that's actually quite, it's quite in areas that would be an inch thick on that thing.
Make it a bit
and I just love that. I love the way you can sort of work rocks and paint and sand and mix them up, and they all like each other. And,
so that's
I did a lot.
Rocks on your canvas, or
sorry,
that's actual rocks stuck to the canvas,
and I put them on with an emulsion. So
wow.
And I use a trowel. Then I scrape back and I put some on with a trowel. Some of it I just put into place and try to let it fall as naturally as I can in there. And I'm following a pattern and following a system. And yeah, so some of it is just built up, and it's areas that's sort of built up half an inch thick, and then some of it's smooth, some of it's sand, and then just work your colours. And it's probably more suited to earthy colours. That painting is probably more suited to earthy browns and reds and so on. But at the same time, I think it really captures something. It's got a strength about it. It's certainly with the shadows up under the top part, it creates almost like there's a cliff up there, or a bit of it creates something very three-dimensional, and people want to touch it.
It really does.
Yeah, they do. As they say, will these come off? I say, try and pull one off. They won't come off.
Oh gosh, I don't think I'd be brave enough to let someone put their mitts on it. So
I'm going to do some more of those. But I love this stuff. My daughter's got that one.
Got a few different styles here, Tim. What I want to do is, look, you've got
There's the River of God. Next to that is that one, and I'll tell you the story on the one that one there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was over in America, and I've got a very good friend over there, Rodney Howard Brown, and I preached for him, and he said, "Tim, come down and see the property I want to buy. It's a car dealership." And I went down on the car dealership, and I thought, my gosh, I nearly fell over under the power of God. And we just come out of a great meeting. And I said to the Lord, I said, I want to sow a bunch of money into this. I want to put a big donation into his work, into this thing. And I went away, and I said, God, what am I going to do? And I was with him up in New York, and I was flying back. I was actually in a Learjet flying back from New York down to Tampa. And I'm sitting in that plane, and I had open vision, and I saw pretty much what's there. I saw this holy city, but it wasn't that detailed. It was just the holy city and the glory and the river flowing, and it was crystal clear. And I could see people in that river just worshiping God, and it was very powerful, very, very, very powerful. And I came home, and I said, Lord, I want to give him some money, but I've got very little in the seed account. And he said to me, what do you got in your hand? Same thing again. What have I put in your spirit? What have I put in here? What have you got in your hand? I said, you put a vision in my heart, and I've got a brush in my hand. He said, put them together. So I built the composition and slowly painted it. I did it over about 3 or 4 days. And as I was painting it, all I could feel was the anointing, like I was preaching, like I was prophesying.
Wow.
And I brought it home, and Jackie nearly fell over. She had a look at it, and the glory came on her. And one of my friends saw the picture, and he got saved looking at it. I contacted Rodney. I said, I'm sending this over. Now, what I want you to do, I'll send you the whole thing really as a... just online. I sent it over as an iPeg or whatever the thing is. I don't know.
JPEG,
so I went over electronically, and I said, produce the prints this size, put a border on them, and so on, and leave this space, get this written at the bottom, leave space for me to sign them and number them. I'll fly in, and we'll sign them at your conference. So I flew in, we set up a stall with all these prints, and he got up, and in one of the sessions, he said early, he took the painting around, which is a painting that's about 5 feet by 4. So it's a big, impressive piece. And they carried it around. Well, people invaded that stall, and we were selling them at $200 US a print. And people were getting the print. The power of God was coming on them. And in less than 36 hours, we had sold pretty close to about 35,000 US dollars. So at that point, the American dollar was 2 to 1. So effectively, we were able to invest about 70,000 into his property. And then I did another one after that of the high priest kneeling before the Ark of the Covenant and the glory of God. And so
what an amazing gift that you have dedicated. You could have been, stayed commercial, and you've done these things that have sowed into the kingdom of God to expand that. So you know, not only, I mean, as we've got Denise on here saying, you know, amazing artwork. Thank you, Denise. And Denise is actually in America right now.
Okay.
My American contact. So hello, Denise. That you are able to use your gift for the things of God is just so amazing. Once again,
I don't think that I would have. I don't think I would have made it very strongly as an artist, just secular. I doubt. I believe it's the fact. And someone said to me, they said, "Can you in business be a minister, a preacher, and also an artist? How can you have two lines of work? Isn't it like trying to catch two rabbits in a room?" And I said, well, you can think of it that way if you like. Trying to catch two rabbits in a room, if they're two separate ventures, are very hard. But if the two rabbits have their legs tied together so they're part of the same venture, they're twice as easy. And I've always felt that the fact that it is because it's totally a commitment to God. And if I was honest with you, we've sold since '88, I think it's about 3,500 paintings, produced about 27 prints. We've got stuff in leading cricketers, actors, some of the great musicians in the world, prime ministers, politicians in a number of countries. And yet I would say of the money that they've been sold for, I reckon Jackie and I would be lucky to have taken 10%. So everything that we've ever done and sold has basically gone into the ministry. We live okay. We live well. We live comfortably without being excessive. But we've endeavoured to just say, Lord, it's for you. And I mean, it's been funny over the years because we've had paintings given to us, and one worth $40,000 on one occasion, and the Lord spoke to me and he said, somebody gave it to us and said, sell it for your house extension. And we had a place that needed an extension back there, and anyway, God spoke to me and said, no, give it to Pro, who's supported you so strongly over the years. And I've just learned that if your attitude's right and your heart in business is that it's not out for you, that the gifting, if God can trust you with a gift, he'll multiply it. If it's for your own, all about me, forget it. I don't even consider myself a particularly good artist. You know, I don't really consider myself to be a significant artist, but I do know that there's something that happens spiritually with what I do. And I had and it may go back even to that print of that Holden car. One of those sold, in fact, the originals that I did that were used for the prints and also then later for those tins, one of them came up on eBay. And I said to a mate of mine, can you buy that for me? I was overseas, buy it for me. I'll put the money in your account. And I bought one of them back. I think it's about $700 or $800 or something. And anyway, he sold it to this guy. The guy made contact with him, and he was a Buddhist guy, an Asian guy and a Buddhist guy, that sold the thing, and my friend bought it, and for me, and I paid him and picked it up. And the guy said, is the man who did that painting spiritual? He said, because I feel something about his work. And he said, yeah, he's a Christian and a preacher. And I think the truth is that, like music, you can feel there is a resonance of God that goes into the music, but there is also a resonance of the Holy Spirit that goes into the magic of creativity.
Oh, yes.
Pro Hart was not necessarily the greatest draftsman. He was a magician with paint. But there was just something in his work where you said, look, it's just there's a supernatural God-given magic, and magic may be the wrong word, but an anointing in that work that makes it very, very special. And I do feel that when I'm doing something and it's got a cause, and there's a breathing of God on it that surpasses my ability. I think my ability is, but when God breathes on whatever ability you've got, it multiplies.
I totally agree. And the thing with creativity, it's like music. I've always thought of music, worship particularly, is a bridge between the natural and the spiritual, because it's sound and it's on the waves. And artwork, particularly, worshipful artwork, but even not necessarily that. I've stood in the Sydney Art Gallery just transfixed and staring at one painting, captivated.
Who was it by?
Oh, I can't remember. I remember it's a famous, I think the lady's name starts with I, and there's a tree and she's there, and it's two lovers who are not touching, but she's looking out. But I was just transfixed, and I was by myself, because that's when I was traveling and speaking, and so I didn't have to worry about someone else saying, come on, hurry up. I could just go there and just melt in it. And I feel that same way about the powerful artwork that gets done in worship. And sometimes at conferences they'll have people, and they might have penciled out what they're going to do, but sometimes they've created things that, and I'll tell you, you would know who's a really good artist. Which of the two big churches in Sydney? He's an artist. He heads up.
Phil Pringle.
That's it. Yep. So
Good friend of mine, Phil.
Yeah. Well, I
like Phil's work. He just
I had no idea.
He just gets a nice big piece of paint and lets it go. He's very free, and Phil's great. So
good. I had no idea he was an artist, and I was in Hawaii, and he was one of the speakers at Bob Harrison's Increase conference.
Okay.
And he showed his painting, and I think he sold it as part of a fundraiser as well. And I was fortunate enough to be able to present him with a copy of my book. And I don't know if he's read it. I haven't heard back, but it was just moving. So it's amazing what you can do when you and it may not be painting, it may not be music, it may be some other kind of art. But when you put your heart into it and you ask the Lord, you invite the Lord in to help you with it, to anoint it, it will really touch people. We're well-rounded beings. We're all about brains and maths and tasks, but there's so much more to us that feeds the soul.
Well, it's a little bit like Ezekiel 37, where there are dead bones.
Yeah.
And God says, can these bones live? And you may have a talent that you think is a dead thing that hasn't got much life, but and you may go, I haven't got much ability at this or whatever. Ask God to breathe on it, breathe on an idea, breathe on something that's creative, and the thing that'll take it from just something that people wouldn't even consider to something that's very, very supernatural is just the breath of God. And the creative breath of God is the most remarkable thing. I know when I'm writing, Trish, and I've just finished my latest book, by the way, which you possibly, have you got it? Did you get a copy?
Is that a plug? Armed and Dangerous.
But when I write, I read the book, I come back and I read what I've written later, and I'm actually preaching out of a book that I wrote called Giant Killers. And that particular book, I'm reading stuff in there, I'm going, wow, this is real. Wow. Well, like I'd never heard it before. Like it's something I...
When you go over your old stuff too.
Yeah. I've been cutting it up and doing sermons. I'm going, wow, this is good stuff. Then I think, I actually wrote this thing. So, and it's because it's got the breath of God on it. And I'm planning another book at the moment. God's just breathing stuff with it.
Look, and here's the thing, with lockdown, you can look at how it's so restrictive, but sometimes it's actually in a place of restriction that our creativity bursts out because it has to find an outlet. And it's all in how you look at it. You can move with the self-pity and the negativity, but I sat in a prison cell, and sometimes I had someone in there with me. There's only one bed. They throw a second mattress on the floor when you're sharing.
Oh, wow.
But I sat, and a chaplain has since told me they put bunk beds in there now, so they can fit 3, and it's just awful. But I remember being in there and thinking about Paul in prison. Now his prison would have been worse than mine. Mine was pretty bad.
The maritime prison was a horrendous place.
Well, exactly, but sometimes it's the less comfortable you are. And that's what fasting is about as well, because it makes you uncomfortable. That's your flesh being denied. The more sensitive you are to things of the spirit, if you turn your mind towards the things of the spirit. So you got a choice of going into the negative and depression, or you can actually tap into the things of God. And it's a really powerful thing. And, I wrote some of my best stuff while I was in prison. That's what my book, Treasures of Darkness, is about.
Yeah.
And my heart and God met me in that. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't flick on social media. There wasn't any there. It was only just coming on when I came out. I thought, what's this Facebook stuff? And this is the thing. There's that the creativity comes from a place of constriction sometimes.
Yep.
So it's So shall we have a look at some more?
Sure.
There's one of your clever ones, nice happy one. I'll just skip through a couple of these. And now this is where you have.
We can't see them. I can't see them yet.
I'm sorry. Hang on.
Right.
I'm just going to the. So I flicked through. There's a lovely rhino and a delightful. Now look,
that's from a kid's book I did. I did the alphabet. It's called Tim Hall's Amazing Animal Alphabet, and that's Ursula the umbrella bird. And so there's a bird called an umbrella bird that's got that funny hairstyle, and they look a bit like that. And so everything I could think of with a U. So it's Ursula the umbrella bird who comes from Ulverston, and then everything I can find with U. So I look up everything on food starting with a U, sport, and then write these absolutely crazy stories. And I had a guy that worked with, I think he worked with major TV guys, and he did the colouring for me. I did the drawings, he did the colouring, and these have been a real blessing to people. I like pigs and rats, and
they're so cute. I think that haircut. I think my 2 brothers were given that haircut by my auntie when we were kids.
Yeah, but the old basin job, that
the bowl and they didn't cut off anything sticking out.
Basin cut.
That's the one.
I did that really because I wanted to do something that down the line my grandkids could enjoy.
Beautiful. What a diverse talent you have.
Well, the cartooning is something I really love. I mean, through this whole COVID, I just filled a whole big book of insane cartoons. Just video. You
drew one for me. Now I've got to say, I'll show it here. Here we go, and I'll put. So this one here, I met Tim at a conference, and I had my little book, and he drew that.
I was carrying a bit of weight then.
Well, you could have been a bit more flattering to yourself, but I was just delighted that you did that. So well done.
The number of books that I've, I go and paint, I go and preach, and then sign books. This is an exhibition, one of the exhibitions I did a little while ago.
Colours, gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that stuff. They all sold that whole row there. They all sold in 10 minutes. So that did well. That probably financed the crusade.
Wow. I should have got you.
There was a lot of paintings. I had 60 paintings in that exhibition. Sold about 45.
I should have got you to design my book cover instead of going on Fiverr. But it was actually I found it. This was my very first book. I'll show you this one. Let's go back to here. So this is my very first book, Dangerous Wealth, What Every Successful Woman Needs to Know to Avoid Being Ripped Off. Now, I've done one for fellas as well, but in the dedication, I actually have, you can see, it says, if that's in focus, this one here, So to Tim Hall, it is well. You had preached a message, it is well. I think it was, I remember it because it impacted me. Because you talked about, we're on Daydream Island, you talked about Give Me My Mountain. I remember that one. And also, I don't remember, nobody remembers every preach, but there are some that stand out in your life. And this one where I think you were talking, it might not have been on Daydream Island, it might have been someone else, but you were talking about when things go wrong, it is well. And to continue trusting God. Now, that book was written after we lost. So I met you when we were doing well.
Yep.
And then we lost everything. And I was facing, really difficult times. And that book, I drafted that book before I went to prison. And I didn't publish it till after I came home. And I held on to that, it is well, among other scriptures and things. But I remember
it's a famous song, isn't it? It is well with my soul.
Well with my soul.
Well, the guy had lost his wife and his kids on a ship.
Yep.
They're coming back. I think they'd gone over to England or America, and they got wrecked on the way back, and he'd lost his wife and lost his little girls. And he said, when the billows roll over and so on, he said, it is well with my soul. And he'd lost the dearest things in his life. Yeah.
Yeah, and life, when we expect life to run smoothly, we're going to come a cropper. But when we know life happens, but when we hold on to Him, it is well. And when you know where your eternity is, it is well. Look, I'm not a fan of pain and suffering. Like the bump over to the other side, I'd like it to be, I would like to die quietly in my sleep, not like the passengers not like the passengers in my grandfather's car. So, hey, I think I mucked up that one. I'd like to die quietly in my sleep like my grandfather.
My grandfather died a peaceful death, not like the other 5 people that were in the car with him.
That's the one.
When he crashed it, yeah.
Mucked it up. I wasn't proud of that anyway.
It's a good joke, that one.
Yeah, I'll leave the jokes to you, shall I?
No. Okay. You're doing all right. Yeah, I enjoyed painting that stuff. I love colour. Oh, and I enjoyed this too. This is a very interesting story. I was in South Africa, and they said, would you consider going over to preach in Botswana? I said, sure. They said, we can't pay you or anything, but would you go over there? I said, sure, I'd love to. And they said, would you like us to fly you over, or would you like to drive over? I said, no, I'll drive. I want to drive across from... I was up in Bloemfontein, and I said, no, let's drive across. So we drove across, and we did some meetings in Botswana, and I'm trying to remember the name of the capital there, Gaborone. And anyway, the guy said, look, we'll have these meetings, but he said, I've got a surprise for you. He said, before we do, we're going to go out to a game park tonight. So I said, that'd be great. This is the night before. So we went out, and we only had 3 hours. But it was a magnificent game park. I've been to a number of really good game parks. This one was pretty special. And I think we had 3 or 4 hours. And we went out, and it was quite an incredible story. As we're driving around, the guy with us was an absolute atheist. And I said to him, he said, you're a Christian? I said, yeah, I am, absolutely. And I said, I'm going to tell you something tonight. We're going to see the big 5. We've only got a few hours. We will see the big 5, the buffalo, the leopard, the lion, the elephant, and the rhino. We'll see them. And anyway, we not only saw them, we had an elephant come right up, start to push the truck, and then he came up, and he was so close that his eye was 2 feet, 3 feet away, right next to the guy's head. And the trunk came in, and it was all around my face.
Wow.
It was freaky. But then coming in, I said, we're going to see a leopard in a minute. He said, nah, the day's over. He said, no, we're going to see one. And the next thing, there was a leopard right in front of us. But I get back to the game park, and they had some walls with space. And I thought, they need some good paintings here. And I found out that the owner was from Adelaide, and that my football team, the Adelaide Crows, had been over there and stayed there. And at any rate, I said to them, they said, do you paint game? And I knew I'd painted a couple of games of cricket, and I said, yeah, sure. And I'd probably painted a few animals, so whatever. I got back and I got a phone call, And the guy said, and he's a top guy from Clipsal, from the Clipsal 500, very wealthy guy in Adelaide. He said, I want 4 paintings. And I want a rhino, I want a zebra, I want something else. And I did the paintings, got good money for them too. And this was one of them. And I do like that painting. To me, of any of the and I've done lions and I've done zebra. I've painted all sorts of game, and got some over there, kudu and so on. But I just love the attitude of this guy, and I like the skin. I worked on that skin. But anyway, I went over for nothing, went to the game park, had a phenomenal time, had great meetings, came back and got 20,000 from my work. So
wow, that's just so amazing.
God just said, you come over and bless me for nothing. Here, God bless you. And it's always been like that. There's always been that if you keep your heart right in what you're doing, you never worry about the finance. You never worry about it. It gets attracted to your attitude, where you're walking with the Lord. If you do it as under the Lord, the finance does follow you. It follows the glory. It follows the power of God.
It does, and it's amazing the divine introductions you get. You know, people that you just would never have met otherwise. I've done that with. I love South Africa. You know, I was invited over there, and I ended up meeting all sorts of people and having that amazing time. And Johannesburg, I was ministering at a conference in Johannesburg, and a fella there was Yanagi. He's in Norway, and he invited me to. He wanted me to come to his Scotland conference, so I went there. And then, so I went to Scotland. He is head of the EAL, the European Apostolic League, European Apostles Association group.
Okay.
Amazing. And I said, look, I'm not an apostle. I'm not a prophet. I mean, I'll prophesy, but I'm not a prophet. I'm an evangelist. And he wanted to hear my story. He downloaded it on Kindle while I was preaching with an interpreter, a French-speaking interpreter. So, you know, one thing leads to another. From there, I went to Norway for a different pastor because he had someone drop out, and Yanagi said, ask Trish to come over and fill in. So I did, and then I've been back again, and then last year Bulgaria, and so it's amazing.
It just widens. You've got
and you just say yes. You just say yes. You don't worry about you do a bit of your planning, but things happen and they go wrong, and it turns into a blessing. Stuck in America when they cancelled flights and cancelled this and cancelled that, and I ended up going to Mexico Cabo because my other thing cancelled and I was stuck. And then someone said, well, do you want to come home with me and go to? I ended up, it's amazing, and that's how I ended up building a US presence and website for. It's mostly ministry work, and I do stick very strictly to the visa conditions that I am. I don't go doing anything under the radar. It's all properly done. But that's how I've got so many American connections, and now Europe. And this year I'm homesick for America and these other places to travel again.
I miss America very, very much. America is just waiting. I'm keen to get back in there for sure.
They're just such can-do people. I just love it, and just how they are. So anyway, that they've been very kind to me, and the media, and that's the thing. And the thing is, I've never had a lot of money since coming home from jail. Everything has been, on a shoestring, and yet God has opened up so much, And my secular business, when I talk ministry. I have the ministry, but I also have the business side of things where I speak motivational talk. I don't hide them from one another. They're separate markets.
Well, they flow together, don't they? You can't. It's the two rabbits.
It's the two rabbits, and the number of people I've prayed with, in the car park of a hotel, because it's been a secular thing. It's just amazing when you're willing and you care and you care about people. It's amazing how they'll open up. And with COVID, the number of people I've prayed for over Zoom and just loved them and connected with them, and they're not Christians, but they get that bit closer, to God and to being ministered to. We just got to love them and not get caught up into the divisions and that sort of thing. But it's who is Jesus. I don't even argue. I never argue with people about this or that. It's about bringing them back to who is Jesus, and that connecting them with Holy Spirit. And that's what a painting can do. You know,
it opened the door for me to get very close to the Australian cricket team. It opened the door for me to get to know Sir Donald Bradman. And it opened doors for me. I became close to, I spent time with Steve Waugh, a lot of time with Steve and Adam Gilchrist and Justin Langer, and I did a big painting of Brett Lee, of him bowling, and all of those guys have got my artwork, and I've been to a number of their homes, and all through really art and then ministry, and a great fascination. And again, it was the two rabbits. It was the art and the ministry that linked things close. And I keep in touch with a few of the guys.
I love it. Now you've listed a number of famous people that you have paintings. One of them was, did you tell me the other day, Alice Cooper?
Yeah, I think he's got one of my prints. I think Alice, I think he finished up with the River of God prints, from what I understand. The originals, there's originals with some of the actors in America, and I know some artwork wound up with some pretty key musicians. I'm probably careful dropping the names, but a lot of Australian, our cricketers here, Australian cricketers, particularly of the era of Steve Waugh and those guys, I used to do paintings and trade with them for bats and worn gloves and shirts and things, and then I would sell those things off for the ministry. And I had a big collection of really great sporting memorabilia. I still do, actually. Still got a lot of signed stuff, and yeah.
Well, now getting back to ministry, since then, your focus is quite a lot on, well, has been up until COVID, and I guess you probably do a lot of virtual stuff as well as I do. Well, perhaps less so, but some. The ministry, you were very gracious to. On a Saturday night, I have a program that preaches into Pakistan and 182 countries beyond. So you did that with me, but you have some experience with Pakistan and a number of places, and you really have had some amazing big events that you look at that, all those people worshiping God. Just so. Now, where was this one taken?
Can't see them.
Sorry. I must remember to do this. Where was this one?
That was an altar call in Myanmar.
Myanmar.
Burma,
wow.
Yeah, that was people coming down for salvation. It was a big move of God. Crowds went right back to the back of those lights, and that was one big call for souls. I don't know how many got saved that night. It was a big night, a lot of miracles.
Just incredible. That's you.
That's India. That's probably 100,000 there in India.
Just incredible.
Yeah, God's been very good. We've had a chance to reach. Well, New Guinea has been a baby, really. It's been a place that I've loved dearly. And that was the National Stadium. We've had the National Stadium, I don't know how many times now, I think 7 times. At one stage, the government paid for us to come in, and we did 23 nights, all paid for by the government. They paid for the stadium, paid the lights, paid everything. And the Deputy Prime Minister drove me around, and we had police escorts and tens of thousands coming to Christ.
Wow.
We've seen every miracle up there. We've seen the dead raised up there in that stadium. Seen blind and crippled and everything you could imagine in that stadium. And all over New Guinea, preached all over the country. I think we've done 46 crusades in New Guinea, and right through the South Pacific. All over the world, actually. Big stuff in India, Africa. For years.
Well, that's pretty incredible. And what I'd like to do now is let people know. I'll put this in first. .com.au for Tim Hall, isn't it?
www.timhall.com.au.
Yep. So this is Tim's website. And if you would like to go there, you can find out more about what he does. This is his book, Armed and Dangerous, which I just have to have one, Tim.
You haven't got one?
No, I haven't got one.
Just text me your address. I'll send you one.
Yeah, that's okay. But you look, everybody else, just have a look around this website. It's great. Armed and Dangerous, Equip and Empower You, Seize Ground for Jesus. This more and more than ever, we need this kind of teaching that we have and moving in the Spirit.
It just opens up the book of Ephesians and the power of Ephesians, which is my favourite book.
Yeah.
And we've got a Power Evangelism school there that's available.
Yep. And you have, that's great. And you've got all course. So you've got resources is what I was after. So have a look at Tim's website.
That's the animal alphabet, and that's the story of the first 40 years, Paravangelism and Giant Killers. That's done really well, that book. It's gone into some key places, and a lot of those, I don't know, 15,000 sold so far, I think. They're going pretty good.
The motionless form of a giant of Gath lay face down on the battlefield of Shoko, and blood from his forehead seeped into the earth below his face. The great intimidator Goliath, champion of Philistia, lay motionless. Oh, that looks so good. That looks so good. So
David ran up onto his body, pulled the sword out, lopped his head off, and the step up onto that giant was a step from obscurity to kingship. And that's what happens with the giants we defeat. Yep.
It is. It so is. And, you know, it's just, I'm also going to put this, come across, there's his website there. So visit timhall.com.au, explore the products that he has.
We've got a YouTube channel as well, a lot of teaching on YouTube. Just look up Tim Hall and you'll find it there.
You'll find that, and then follow him so that on the social medias so that you get notified. By all means, follow trishjenkins.com.au.
Absolutely.
I'm just up in your stuff, but yes, both of us preach, both of us are evangelists in different ways, and the one thing that unites us is our heart for people. And to, you know, the role of an evangelist is to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. It's not just up to us to lead people to God. It's about equipping your people to be confident in sharing their faith so that they can lead people to Jesus, because my goodness, more people than ever need him. We've always needed him, but in the dark times that we're in, you know, if you're doing okay in your little patch, it's easy to forget that so many people are suffering mental health issues, family breakdown, divorces, loss of jobs, loss of income, and they're scared and they're looking for answers, and they are more willing than people have ever been in my memory to be open to hearing about the love and power and provision of God, that supernatural power, that Holy Spirit power.
It's a very open time right now.
Everybody. I've never found it easier to offer to pray for people and to connect with them. And don't think that because it's on computer, it's any less intimate. In fact, a computer can create a greater intimacy than meeting in a coffee shop where there's no privacy. You know, and
true.
You know, there's a thing that I introduced to some secular groups that I was with, and I had wanted to have just have lunch with someone, you know, just have a lunch with someone over the Zoom. And when you normally give them a hug, you do this, you put your arms around yourself and they do it, and you tell them, these are what you feel is my arms around you. And you say, is it okay if I just pray a blessing on you for good things to happen? And of course they're going to say yes, because you tell them what you're praying for, and you do that. And you pray for them to be more connected to Jesus. You know, when you step out and you offer what you have, when you offer what is in your hand, that is what Tim Hall did all those years ago. He looked at what was in his hand and he said, what's in my hand? What is in my hand? It's a paintbrush. What's in your hand that you can use? What was in my hand? I had nothing. All I had was a story and some warning signals about fraud and business, and it's evolved into ministering to people, secular and Christian, about, you know, what was jail like? How did you cope? How did you get out? But the strongest prison bars are in your head. Yeah. But the most powerful thing you have is in your heart and in your hand. And Tim Hall, my goodness, I've been so blessed. I could talk to you all day. but I know you're in great demand, and I really want to encourage.
I have to go in a moment. Yes.
Like, follow, all of those things, and thank you so much, Tim, for sharing with us today. It's been an absolute honour and a pleasure.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it too, Trish, and I hope somebody out there's been encouraged and blessed, and maybe it's been just the right time for them.
Fantastic. Bless you and bless everybody else.
Thank you. Thanks, Trish.